Good morning, Lisa. You know what it is. Let's do it. So, today's topic is going to be closing. Taking a prospect to a client, whether it be usually on a sales call, whether you convert people to a course, to a community, or they don't have to be on a sales call. Either way, it all comes down to sales, and that's the final piece of the product market fit. So, a couple of topics I want to talk around closing that are really important. One of the first pieces is the actual style of selling, and then I want to go into objection handling. So, when it comes to the style of selling, I recommend y'all check out a book called The Challenger Sale. It's recommended by my mentor and is a really good book, and basically talks about the different ways that you can actually sell, right? And there are different styles of people. So we talk relationship builders, we talk the salespeople that are focused on not necessarily over-promising, but promising, and the salespeople who are actually helping with fulfillment, helping with delivery. Then trying to think of the other few angles. Can't think of it right now, but another one is teaching, right? Actually taking control of the conversation, tailoring, and then teaching. And they've actually done studies. I believe the SEC had actually done studies to figure out which style of selling was the most effective. And there's a clear winner between all of them. One of them would actually have more successful rates than double of all the others. And there was one that actually had half the success of all the others. So the one that had half the success was actually the relationship builders. Believe it or not, they actually had the worst performance for actually closing clients. And the one that actually had the best was the teaching. So the people who would come in there and would spend 30 minutes with the prospect actually teaching them a solution to their problem. And it has to be in a way to where you're teaching them something they haven't thought of before, right? Like if you teach them something they already know, they're like, oh yeah, I knew that, I'll just keep doing that, right? But if you give them a new angle, you teach, you tailor, you take control of the conversation, close rates tend to be way higher. And one of the ways you can actually view it is as if you're almost, instead of just viewing that as a sales call, like you're making the sales call so valuable that someone would actually pay for it, right? Like pay for 30 minutes of your time to learn about you teaching something. So what I started to do personally on a lot of my initial discovery calls, and especially going into like secondary calls, I'll just, give away the good stuff, right? Outline like, hey, we're gonna focus on this. In your specific situation, you don't need to worry about this. You just need to focus on this, right? So making it tailored to them, and then going in and showing them the process, showing them everything we would cover, giving them the roadmap towards what they need to do to reach success, right? And what that actually does is it definitely gives them, it makes them feel, I wouldn't say validated, but it makes them feel more confident in services. But also it gives them a better picture, makes it more tangible. And then you actually almost give them a bit of an information overload. Usually if you're an expert on something, you're teaching something, especially coming from an angle that they're not really familiar with, you're kind of giving them an information overload. There's a little bit of fear, doubt, how are they gonna execute it on their own? So then they look to you to actually come in and implement everything that you just discussed, okay? So when you're going into sales calls, again, I definitely recommend checking out The Challenger Sale. Really good book, and it teaches you how to teach and really effectively sell. So that's the first piece. Now I want to talk a bit about objection handling. So there are two different types of, I'd say, objections, but they often get confused. So there's objection handling, and then there's logistical question handling, basically. And I'll break down the two examples. So objection handling is usually an excuse, something that somebody says to get around the actual truth, get around just saying they're not interested and they're trying to give you a reason or an out, right? Or it could be an entirely viable objection as well. And then you go into logistics handling. So this is where someone's like, hey, I want to pay you, but I don't get paid till Friday. Like, how can we work this out? Or I can't pay in full, can we split it up over multiple months, right? I would handle logistical questions all day. However, there are only a certain amount, maybe 3 to 5 objections that I would handle in a given conversation, because after a certain point, you can tell that the person just does not want to be aligned, does not want to make it happen. So I'm not going to continue to waste time trying to convince somebody that they need the services when they clearly don't want it, right? So when it comes to objection handling though, one of the biggest things you don't want to do is you don't want to get defensive. Someone can say, "Oh well, your competitors are a lot cheaper." You can say, "Oh well, they're crappier, right? Like, or oh, they're not as good." Like, you don't want to do that. You want to just find a way. Okay, hey, yeah, I understand. Thank you for sharing that with me. However, we actually do more here. We do more there. We have better outcomes here, right? Actually explain it to them logically and stay calm. I've talked about it before, but like, you want to stay lean back in your chair. You don't want to get up in the camera. You don't want to start like going back and forth with them. You want to stay lean back. You want to stay in control. You want to stay confident. You want to make sure you don't get defensive. So those are my tips for today, talking about closing. I'd say honestly, closing has always been decent for me. There's little tips in rapport building and communication and getting emotional and logical buy-in from people that definitely boost your efforts. But a lot of it just comes down to being able to have a solid flowing conversation, and just know your stuff, right? Know what you're talking about, know what you're selling, and be an expert. If they have questions, if they have fear, if they have doubt, make sure you can take control, you teach, do all that good stuff when it comes to closing. So with that being said, I actually teach closing as part of my high ticket product market fit. I have a course around that piece, also in my paid community. So definitely would love to have you come in there, check it out. Really valuable, really packing it full of value, teaching, providing some insight. So I want to keep it as simple and actionable as possible. We talk a lot about, my wife and I last night heard about Occam's razor. It's like the simplest information is often the best. So having it to where it's easy to understand for experienced people and also beginners is important, but definitely recommend you go in there and check it out. With that being said, we'll finish up for today. Y'all have a good one.